The reason that I'm not a nihilist is some days I want to live like in Star Trek. And I know that we'll never build starships until we tackle poverty, war, and hardships. So we fight overnight and over lifetimes, organized for that warp drive. And of course, I realize that we're a long way from it. But what better reason to start running? Because if you're going to do the work, then it's got to be honest. Because the best of us have all already been forgotten. And if you're in it for the recognition, I hate to disappoint, but if you do it right, you'll never get it. We don't remember the farmer. We remember the fruit. We don't remember the inventor. We remember the boom, the impact through the eons. So I know what side of history I want to be on. I got a lot of ancestors on my side. Got an ancestor took a bullet to the chest and survived. I got an ancestor who cheated and lied. I got an ancestor who taught her children how to fight. Right? So much spirit in my corner, can't help but color outside every border. To every ancestor who kept my song alive, I swear on your unmarked graves, I will sing it till I die. Because there are no stories told in a vacuum. There is no prophecy lighting our way. There is just a lot of darkness to be afraid of. So it's a good thing we are not afraid. There is no Superman in that phone booth. There is no rewarding our faith. There is no one who can save us. So it's a good thing we don't need to be saved. There are no starships in low Earth orbit. No aliens to save us from ourselves. There is no voice willing to speak for us. So it's a good thing we know how to yell. There is no chosen one. No destiny, no fate. There's no such thing as magic. There is no light at the end of this tunnel. So it's a good thing we brought matches. Thank you. Like, I'm a little like thrown just because, well, I think about, like, one, thank you all for coming out. Like, this is really cool. I was super worried that people wouldn't want to come to this show because it's technically the re-release of the book. So half of y'all, like, already got it, and I appreciate that. But this is great. The new cover is beautiful, and, like, it's the middle of winter, so I'm very grateful. But I'm also a little thrown because, like, as much as I live in the Twin Cities and, like, perform here, I feel like most people never really see the actual work that I do. Like, you see, you know, a poem on the internet, or, like, hear an album, or, like, come to a show and see a set or whatever, but, like, the actual work that I do is very different. It's like I travel around to, you know, community centers and conferences and colleges and high schools and stuff, and, like, I don't just do poems. Like, I'll maybe do, like, one poem, and then we'll talk. Like, I'll do, you know, if you've heard, like, the how to explain white supremacy to a white supremacist, and then, like, break up into groups and, like, have a conversation about it. And then we'll come back and do, like, one more poem, and then we'll, like, write on a whiteboard, like, what are action steps we can take? It's very, like, more based on dialogue, like, not just standing up in front of people and blah, blah, blah. So that's weird. And then the other, like, the flip side of that is that I very rarely get to perform for people who, like, want to see me. And I mean, I don't say that with any, like, false Midwestern humility or whatever. Like, that's very real. Like, I'm not Neil Hilborn, you know? Like, I don't go to a city and, like, 100 people will be like, yeah, Guante. It's much more often where I'll come out somewhere and they'll have me, like, work with the football team for 2 hours. And to talk about, like, consent or, like, gender violence or, like, critical masculinity stuff. Or work with, like, a church congregation around, like, whiteness and white supremacy stuff. And, like, people generally don't want to hear what I have to say. Which is, like, you know, that's part of the work that I do. It's like, how do we use poems as a way to get into those conversations with people who may not already want to have them? And, like, if you're in this room, that may not apply to you, but I figured tonight will still be an opportunity for me to maybe, like, demonstrate a little bit more of what I do. I'm not gonna make you, like, have conversations with each other, don't worry. But I did wanna, like, rather than just do poems, I wanted to structure those poems around, like, a central question. I'm gonna shut up in a second and do a couple poems, but so, like, the first chapter in the book is called 10 Things I Wish Everyone Knew About Spoken Word and Slam Poetry, just because, like, I was so sick of having that conversation. Or, like, everywhere I go, people are like, oh, you're a slam poet, right? And they think of, like, Jonah Hill in 22 Jump Street, if any of y'all have seen that. Like, 90% of people, like, that's what they think of when they think of spoken word and slam poetry. So, like, that essay does a lot of the what, like, some of its, you know, cultural foundation, roots, stuff like that. I figured tonight would be an opportunity to talk a little bit about the why. So I'm gonna share a bunch of poems, and each one kind of illuminates a different, for me, I guess, like, a pillar of why I think spoken word is important, and, like, what keeps me coming back to it, and what keeps me, like, energized when I'm doing other types of work to create other spaces and stuff. Does that make sense? Yeah, cool. Oh, and also, again, I'm gonna be quiet in a second, but shout out to Button for like everything and all this, and to Dua for hosting, and to Mooks for performing, and like Mooks wrote the foreword in the book, and yeah, I wanted Mooks to write the foreword because I'm a big believer in kind of like dismantling how we usually think about mentorship, where it's like mentorship is like this older person who like gives all their knowledge to this younger person. I'm much more interested in like kind of horizontal, intergenerational, everyone learning from everyone type of mentorship. And in that sense, like, Mooks is one of my biggest mentors in the world in terms of like giving me something to look forward to in my career. Like the theater stuff, Kung Fu Zombies versus Cannibals is like, I can't tell you how life-changing that was for me in terms of my writing. And like, if you only hear the title, you may have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's incredible. And then Lydia, thank you so much. Like, I can't see, I don't have my glasses. Okay, thank you, Lydia. Again, it's fun to have a show with just like people who I like and who are cool, and not necessarily like the most famous people I know in my phone. Not that y'all aren't famous, okay. Okay, let me do a poem, all right. This is about the first job I ever had. It's not rocket science, right? It's a 10-foot piece of rope with a hook at the end of it. We got 3 of them hanging in the equipment shed out back. One of them is thicker, but a little shorter. One of them looks thin as shoelaces, but it's a good half foot long. If you got first pick, take that one. It looks flimsy, but trust me, you will break before it does. Try to keep up. See, these are the days before robots. And this is a city where people leave their empty apartments, leave their empty SUVs, and finally, leave their empty shopping carts here for us. You can hook 7 together with that rope and push them back into the store. When it's busy, grab 10. When it's wild, stack 30 up, but we'll push them in together. Just be careful because, you know, these people, they will look right through you when they're back out of those spots. When they take that corner at like 40 miles per hour, when they forget that they forgot to use a blinker and cuss you out for walking through a crosswalk. See, to that guy right there, we are our background noise. Uncredited extras in the 80-year-long made-for-TV romantic comedy that he calls life. We are neurons flickering stupidly. Infantry stomping through the dreams he won't remember upon awakening. So yeah, make sure you wear comfortable shoes, right? Boots in the winter, sneakers in the summer. Add pads as you grow older. Grow older. Learn to control a convoy of carts without that rope, just balance, coordination, and will. Learn to control the fist that lives in your neck when these people just leave their carts in the middle of a parking space. Swallow. When they look right through you, swallow. When it's 30 below and a straitjacket will be warmer than these flimsy company coats and you're working a double shift because you've heard rumors of layoffs and the dapper manager saunters up and says, "How's it going, chief?" Understand that they will never understand this. The beauty of a parking lot at twilight, how the sky burns blue. The sweetness of every second when the big hand is on the 11, the smile of the person who actually looks at you. We betray ourselves for $7 an hour. Our native language is white noise, cart pushers, cashiers, janitors, servers, bartenders, drivers. We are an army fighting a war we don't believe in a country whose name we can't pronounce, but we're fighting. And we're tired, but we're fighting. And we're losing. But we're fighting. You get 2 15s and a half hour for lunch. The breaks aren't for your body, though. They're for your spirit. Because with an 8-hour shift broken up into quarters, that's just 4 2-hour shifts. After punching in and chatting with the MOD and putting your gloves on, you can glance at your watch and say, wow, I'm almost halfway to being halfway done with half of half my shift. It makes the time fly right by. You'll be fine, kid. Just remember, smile. You're representing the company. Remember, say hello to people when they walk in the door. And remember, when they look right through you, you're still there. Yeah. So again, in terms of like the structure of my set, that poem for me illustrates one of the fundamental like principles of spoken word. Again, not just spoken word as like do a poem and get on YouTube, but like spoken word as a cultural practice. The idea that everyone has a story and every story matters and every story is valid. And how important it is to like have a space for those stories to get told that don't always get told, right? Another way of thinking about this is like, or a subset of this is how do we make things that are usually invisible, usually ignored, how do we make them the center in the spotlight? And that relates to this next piece too, which I'm gonna read from the book. Yeah, it's weird, like, okay. Oh, thank you so much. Which side should I put the book on, Eric? For your footage, doesn't matter? All right. Okay, right side. Okay. Yeah. I mean, so we're talking about this idea of like counter-narrative, basically, like identifying what the larger story is and then challenging that with our own stories. This is a short poem, but yeah. It's called Police Make the Best Poets. Note the creative phrasing, the novel juxtaposition of words. The officer discharged his weapon, striking the individual. Note how the poem is so well constructed, the newspapers print it as is. Note how they call it a perfect storm of human error. Poetry is weather, after all, not climate. Note this attention to detail, height, weight, what size pants he wore, the specific model of toy gun. Poetry is, after all, about zooming in on these concrete particulars. Note how precise they are with their cuts. History, context, connections, trends. They focus only on what is necessary. So every time we hear the poem, it feels fresh again. Note their mastery of repetition. Note how they show all the things they cannot tell. Yeah, that's the other thing about like the weird career that I've led is that like my goal is not necessarily to get people to like me or to like be famous. My goal is access. So if I can get into a space and try to do whatever work I can do in that space, like that's the important thing. So my sets don't tend to be very like fun. But I think that's important. I think, fun art is really important, but it doesn't have to always be fun. And it shouldn't always be fun. And so I want to keep going on this thread of like counter narrative, like how useful art is for shining a light on something that like is, you could be considered like the story, like the societal cultural story, and then creating space for other people to share what's missing in that story, or just straight up challenging that story and saying that is garbage. This is a poem that like, if you know who I am, like through Button or whatever, like this was like the big poem that I had. And I hardly ever perform it anymore just because I have other ones that I like more. But I figured just for tonight, I'll do it just for the hell of it. And then also, because it continues this conversation about counter-narrative, especially for audiences who have not ever heard the counter-narrative before. Like, there are more radical things I could say, but like a poem like this is more about opening up that conversation and at least like acknowledging that there is a conversation to be had. So, and I can curse, right? They're not like little kids. I mean, Mook's already cursed, so. You didn't ask either, you just did it, right? I don't curse much in myself, but okay. This is called 10 responses to the phrase, man up. 1, fuck you. 2, if you want to question my masculinity like a schoolyard circle of curses, like a sword fight with lightsaber erections, save your breath because, contrary to what you may believe, not every problem can be solved by growing a pair. You cannot arm wrestle your way out of depression. The CEO of the company that just laid you off does not care how much you bench, and I promise there is no light beer in the universe full-bodied enough to make you love yourself. 3, Man up. Oh, man up. Yeah, that's that new superhero, right? Like mild-mannered supplement salesman Mark Manstrong says the magic words, man up, and then transforms into the 5 o'clock shadow, the massively muscled, deep-voiced, leather duster-wearing Superman who defends the world from, I don't know, feelings. 4, of course, why fight to remove our chains when we can simply compare their lengths? Why step outside the box when the box has these badass flame decals on it? We men are cigarettes, dangerous and poisonous. 5, you ever notice how nobody ever says woman up? They may like imply it, but they usually don't just come out and say it because women, and I think the women's movement, figured out a long time ago that being directly, explicitly ordered around by commercials, magazines, music, and media is dehumanizing. And like, when will men figure that out? 6, the phrase man up suggests that competence and perseverance, both like good things, are also uniquely masculine. That women, not to mention any man who doesn't like eat steak and drive a big truck and have lots of sex with women, are nothing. More than anything though, it suggests that to be yourself, whether you, whatever, like wear skinny jeans or rock a little eyeliner or drink some other brand of light beer or write poetry, will cost you. 7. So how many boys have to kill themselves before this country acknowledges the problem? How many women have to be assaulted? How many trans people have to be murdered? We teach boys how to wear the skin of a man, but we also teach them how to raise that skin like a flag and draw blood for it. 8, boy babies get blue socks, right? Girl babies get pink socks. What about like orange? What about green? What about purple? What about cerulean, black, tie-dyed, buffalo plaid, rainbow 9? I want to be free to express myself. Man up. I want to have meaningful emotional relationships with my brothers. Man up. I want to be weak sometimes. Man up. I want to be strong in a way that isn't about physical power or dominance. Man up. I want to talk to my father about something other than sports. Man up. I want to be who I am. Man up. 10. No. All right. So yeah, I love this idea of the stage as being a space where we can like question things, shine a light on these larger stories, which is super like political and like needs to be political. It's explicitly political, but it isn't just about creating like explicitly political art. I think this idea of reframing and rethinking particular issues relates to like craft, like the writing process in general. So I want to share like a really short piece. This is from the book. The middle section of the book is all song lyrics. Like the first section is poems, then song lyrics, then a bunch of essays and stuff. This is from the song section, but this is like another way of thinking about this idea of how do we reframe stuff that we feel like we already understand, but reframing it in a new way. It's hard to be the cool kid at a funeral. Skinny black ties, black shoes, it's a beautiful October afternoon. I watch a plane overhead full of human beings who have no idea that you're... I guess life goes on, right? No offense. And now I'm trying not to laugh, which makes me want to laugh, and I don't mean no disrespect as I step into this funeral home like light through stained glass, like light through black holes, like light that faded ages ago, like my phone on airplane mode, like I don't believe in ghosts, but I swear I feel a buzz, a voicemail from the nothing where something was. I'm still laughing. I can't pretend like I'm not sad. It's just that lack of touch is not the same as lack of contact, and that Grim Reaper isn't that powerful. You can't change the past, and your impact is unstoppable. I don't think you die when you die. I don't think we really understand what it means to be alive, much less existence and much less time. We think that there's no time, but maybe there's no time, and maybe memory and prophecy are intertwined. Maybe the presence is a pixel in a much larger design, like if the system's resolution is 1 trillion by 1 trillion, but the CPU display is only 1 by 1, well then it's easy to assume that there's nothing but the room in which we hide and not a whole universe outside. I don't know if any of this makes sense. I don't know if I should end it with an amen. I just know there's a river in every raindrop and a lot of raindrops in that riverbed. I said, I just know there's a river in every raindrop and a lot of raindrops in that riverbed. That's also a poem that we use in like educational spaces, workshop spaces a lot around like, how do we take things that are really, really, really big, like the concept of death, or the concept of masculinity or the concept of race and racism, and how do we make them small so that like people can actually start to see them, like put a human face on them, and this idea of like talking about death through the lens of talking about a very, very specific moment of like walking into the funeral home and seeing an airplane going overhead and being like, wow, that's weird. And like just that little physical, real life, concrete moment is at an entry point into something that hopefully is bigger than that. I'm just like jumping all over the place. Are y'all good? Yeah. Word. So, this is another, like, I don't get to read the short poems from the book very much, but this is one of the other poems in the book. It's called An Open Letter to Pinocchio from Dracula. Let me tell you about flesh. We danced in their living rooms while they slept, squeezed through keyholes and soundlessly caressed the insides of their loved ones. Glory, pillowcases painted dawn, pulling real boys out from under our fingernails. No, flesh is not your wish. More likely normalcy, the electricity of a lover, the chill of dusk, the ability to smell. Remember, the creatures of the night belong to me, including the crickets. They talk. Your wish, for flesh bubbling around your walnut heart, for blood cascading through your wooden joints, more likely the wish of a leaf to drop and join its brothers on the forest floor, a tortured prisoner biting off his own tongue to choke. Remember, that spirit inside you is not yours. You only feed it. We are more than the materials with which we have been built. Paint your skin, ratchet the angle of your spine, but keep this magic burning. Too much leaked away already. Like the skin peeling off a snake, like an angel starving to death, like the last music ever. Remember, abomination is just another word for miracle. Half extinct, we are still gods. Let us pray. And so like take it back to like the theme, right? For me, a piece like that and the next one I want to read is about illuminating the idea that like art and poetry are very powerful tools for like communication and like persuasion and convincing people of stuff and education, but they don't have to be. Sometimes preaching to the choir is really, really, really important. Sometimes just saying the thing that you want to say to your audience is really, really important. And that's something that has taken a long time for me to kind of wrap my head around, because I'm so quick to be like, this poem is for use in these social justice education spaces where they can hear the discussion questions. The book has a bunch of like literally like discussion questions in it based on the poems. But like, it isn't always about educating, it isn't always about like convincing people. And that sets up this poem, which is brand new. This is like, no one's ever heard this before. I'm really interested in like, we talk a lot in art about like being timeless, and like there's value in that, but I'm also really interested in how can we be timely. Like people ask for like writing prompts, right? Like describe the face of the dragon who circles the moon around your home planet, and like that can be super creative and like that's cool, but I'm not trying to be funny, right? Like that's like for me the best writing prompt is to like be on Twitter and like follow the news and like read the news and see what's going on. Like that's what I want, more poets. And this is a challenge to myself. I'm not talking to anyone else, but like just to be more present in the world and like write about stuff that's going on. And so this poem is called Thoughts and Prayers. Poetic logic would state that a poem about mass shootings should open with something narrative, something graphic and shocking that shakes the audience out of their apathy. For people to truly cultivate empathy, that logic would state, they need to not just understand the horror on an intellectual level, but to visualize it, to embody it, to feel it. But that logic flows from the presupposition that the point of a poem like that would be to persuade people who do not care to care. And does change come from convincing monsters to no longer be monsters? Do words have the power to make a coward no longer a coward? This poem is not an open letter to the NRA. This poem is not a condemnation of those politicians who will only ever offer their thoughts and prayers because taking any action beyond that is too risky politically. When we win, it will not be because we have convinced our enemies to love us. It will be because we have beaten them. It will be because we have out-organized them and made their positions, however deeply felt, irrelevant. That is how power works. Poetic logic would state that this idea should be supported by a metaphor, a concrete image, a heart-rending personal story ripped from my real-life experience. Without that, this logic states, the audience may not be able to relate, may tune out of the poem entirely. So what percentage of this audience am I left with? 50%, 15%, 1%. What percentage of the people does it take to drive meaningful policy change? 50%, 15%, 1%. Of course, we need to build mass movements. But mass movements have to start somewhere. And maybe if you are still listening to this poem that contains so little poetry, it is because you are someone who already cares, who knows that small groups of committed people can and have and will change the world, who knows that there is work to be done, and who will show up and join that organization, organize that march, run for office yourself, do whatever it takes to be part of the solution. Maybe you already know that our cynicism, the idea that mass shootings are inevitable or part of a cycle that is doomed to repeat forever, is not just disrespectful to the activists and advocates and survivors fighting for change every day, but it's also no different from the cynicism of conservative lawmakers offering their thoughts and prayers again and again and again and again. Poetic logic would state that a poem about mass shootings and the power we have to stop them should close with something narrative, a memory, or anecdote, or scene that offers a glimmer of hope. But hope does not glimmer, it burns. Hope must be kindled. Hope is not the poem, not the thought, not the prayer. It is the fire breathed into life, spreading. So like, do a mention the open mic that the organization I work with hosts. I don't know how many of y'all heard everything I just said, but like, I work with this organization that hosts an open mic every Thursday night. The organization is called True Art Speaks. The open mic is called The Reverb. It's over at Golden Time Cafe over in Rondo every Thursday night, 6 to 8 p.m. It's free and all ages, intergenerational, so if you're a poet, you're looking for a place to perform, that's a cool space. But one thing that's special about that open mic is that it isn't just like go up and do your poem and leave. Like, you can get feedback. We can have conversations about stuff. And so with that poem, since it's brand new, if people have feedback, I'm totally down to hear it. We'll talk after the thing or whatever. Why do I have this? What am I? Okay. I just have a few more poems, all right? So that last piece, again, was about illustrating for me, like, one of these principles of how poetry isn't just about changing people's minds, but about cultivating kind of strength, both individually and then intra-community-wise, or whatever. This piece, too, like, comes out of that idea. And this is also pretty new. But yeah. The pen on the other side of the kitchen table will not move. Like, no matter how hard I concentrate, how laser precise my focus, how dramatically I arch my fingers, it just sits there. And it should be such a simple thing, right? To move this tiny object with the vastness of my spirit, to simply lift it up a half inch or to engulf it in flames, but nothing. This is still long before I learned about like physics, right? That whole an object at rest stays at rest stuff. Because, you know, what is inertia to magic? I am 10 years old. And the mythology I've been fed since birth, folk tales and fairy tales, movies and TV shows, comic books and video games, so much of it is built around this like reveal, right? Like, guess what? The spirits say, you are a wizard. Guess what? You are a Jedi or a mutant or the chosen one or the half-blood child of a god, which is a good thing because we are at war and we need you. So focus, the spirits say. That pen on the other side of the kitchen table will move if you are pure of heart, if you have a righteous cause, if you just try hard enough. That bully or that abuser or that authoritarian tyrant will lose because, you know, the bad guys always lose, right? As if the struggle was so simple, as if force were not stronger than the force, as if special powers could ever defeat power, because that pen is still sitting on the other side of the kitchen table. It won't move. It never will. And I wish I could say that this is when like 10-year-old me learned that magic isn't real. It would make for a better story, but honestly, it took longer. It took study. And not just science, but history. It took showing up to so many marches and rallies and vigils and meetings, developing power that was not super, but was still power. It took the largest mass movement in the history of the world and the failure of that movement. It took so many late nights comforting friends and doing the work that no one will remember. It took mistakes. It took more mistakes. It took lives. It took and took and took, and this was my disillusionment. Not a lightning strike, a slow flood. Just figuring out on some level that things were not getting better and that they weren't going to. Not on their own. Not easily, not like magic. This is my disillusionment. Not the absence of hope, the absence of illusion, the unsubtle art of getting your hands dirty because we do not have the luxury of waiting to be saved. We recognize no superpower stronger than solidarity, community, courage. We don't have spells, but we do have songs. This alchemy of suffering, this transmutation of pain into progress, this hard-won knowledge, how a voice does not have to move mountains to move people, how it's not about the source of the fire, it's about how brightly it burns, how the magic is not whether I pick up that pen with my mind or with my hand. The magic is what I write with it. It is not destiny that we are all here right now. But we are all here right now. And there may not be any demons or monsters outside these doors, but that doesn't mean that we aren't at war. That there are not forces in this world that would make dragons cower in their caves, and how it is up to us, who are not special, who are not chosen, but choose ourselves and choose each other, who have nothing to offer but the thread binding our storybook bodies together to keep fighting. So no, the spirits don't talk to me. I talk to them, though. I tell them, thank you for your silence, for forcing me to pick up that pen myself. Thank you for never appearing in the mirror so that I might see myself, the buried treasure in all this rubble, the magic still burning when all faith has fled. Cool. So yeah, that piece attempts to like tie together all the random stuff I've been talking about tonight, in terms of like why this work is still interesting to me and like keeps me coming back to it. So yeah. Can I do like a couple more just short ones, and then again, thanks to Ice House, they have another show tonight if y'all want to hang out and like get some more They have good ginger lemonade here. That's my favorite thing here. But yeah, I will shout out too, just in terms of like where that poem comes from. Like, there's a bunch of stuff over here aside from the books, or aside from my book. There's also two other, I think Dante Collins' book and Melissa Osada Lovita's book, Peluda over here, which is really, really good. And also a bunch of like my stuff too. Like, I have a bunch of CDs. Like, the middle section of the book is song lyrics, and I have a CD of those actual songs if you want to actually listen to them. That's over here. Also a vinyl that I did for the group called Sifu Hotman, which is me and Dem Atlas and a producer named Rube, which is my favorite thing I've ever done. And then some stickers that are free, and then these little like zines that I wrote that are all about like activism and stuff, whatever. But yeah, check it out. But then also, I was saying there's also some flyers here for the True Art Speak stuff we were talking about. One, the free all ages open mic every Thursday night, which if you're a poet, please check it out. But also, we're right now in the middle of the 2018 Be Heard Minnesota Youth Poetry Slam series. Done this for 6 years in a row, and I feel like it's still weirdly under the radar. So if you like poetry, I would love if you would come to these events. 2 years in a row, we've had sold-out finals at the Walker. We're leaving the Walker this year and going to Stepping Stone Theater in St. Paul, which I'm super excited about. Yeah, right? But yeah, we just had all our prelim bouts. These are all young poets from around the state of Minnesota between 13 and 19 doing unbelievable work on like a content level and on a craft level. Semifinals come up. March 10th, Loft Literary Center. Another semifinals bout, March 17th at McAllister. And then finals are March 31st, last day of March at Stepping Stone Theater. There are flyers for all that over here too. But if any of y'all are teachers or work in schools, like, get in touch. Cool. I'm gonna do a love poem, because I never get to do love poems, like, ever. They fell upon us softly, like leaves rustling around landmines, a blade buried in wet soil, starving for the essence of our love. They enveloped us. First, a few haunted homes on the outskirts of town, then into the proud city itself, then spreading like a spilled can of burgundy paint across the map, swallowing. Appetites attached to talons, blue-white fangs in children's mouths. Wine always escapes its cup one way or another. We should have seen it coming. But when they appeared, pale and shrieking on the horizon, the might of 10,000 years of cups and dishes and goblets shattered, and the spill drowned every dream ever dreamt. But you, I found you treading water, regardless, as invincible as canned food in 2x4s. I found you exploding, brimstone on your lips, tattooed with the fury as warm as the sun used to be. I found you beautiful, shaved head, Kevlar, bare hands. You cut them down, you broke them, you found knives between your knuckles and war clubs inside your leg bones. And I still remember how the ghost of a smile flickered across your eyes when you leaned in close and whispered to me, "Take the shotgun. See, I want the fireman's axe. I want to feel it. I want to feel them beneath it." And I knew then that we were going to share whatever forever we had left, that we were to share an ancient love, a love bonded with flint and bone, that our skulls now carried within them a shining new darkness. Our first date, fireballing through hordes of the undead, dull silver eyes and ragged hands reaching, screams bisected, every gunshot a kiss, every swing of that axe a bedroom's liquid whisper. In the blackness I smelled your humanity and aimed in the opposite direction. Love, warm and grasping, splashed against the walls. Love splashed onto our bodies. Love splashing inside of us. Defiantly, I found you in this smoking chaos. Our shoulder blades kissed. And there may come a day when The sun bursts from the spider's belly to smile upon this world again. There may come a day when love can be represented by like poetry and romantic comedies and candlelight dinners again, when it may be held soft and round in the palm of a child's hand. But it's not on us to build that world. It's not on us to survive this one. Ours is not a love song sprouted from redemption, hope, or even longing. But it is a love song. So sing it under your breath. Sharpen it every morning. And if you should fall, I swear I'll come for you. 2 barrels erupting as one, an aluminum baseball bat strapped to my back, 2 pockets full of hand grenades, singing, pins already pulled. Cool. So I usually, don't play this long, or play sets this long. They're usually broken up by dialogue. So I'm gonna get out of here. I do want to end with this one though, because again, I don't need people to like me. I just do my thing, right? So I want to do one more poem. So if you're antsy, chill. Again, this is just for me. So I hope you can pull something from it too. But this is a poem that I wrote for myself. This is the art of drawing breath, of making visible what has been invisible. This is a pragmatist guide to faith. This is singing when you don't know how to pray. Welcome to this space. Know that you are not welcome here. We are all trespassers. We are not welcome here. This universe would like nothing more than for you to not exist, and the proof is in the history you live. Tell me this. What are the odds that this planet would appear in just the right place with the right atmosphere and geology? What are the odds that life would suddenly spark in the darkness from the carcass of this planet to a colony? What are the odds that this anomaly would spread? What are the odds it would survive and stay ahead of volcanic eruptions, meteorites, and earthquakes? That first drum, first beat, first rhythm, first break, first time the notes broke to form a system. You could hear the first melody, the first multi-celled organism. What are the odds this first environment to harbor life would meet another, maybe fight or maybe harmonize, but either way it would evolve? So what are the odds it would evolve to walk and not crawl, to fly and not fall, to survive every single mass extinction? What are the odds of your existence? How many generations did it take to make you? How many plagues, wars, and massacres conspired to uproot your family tree and salt the earth around it? How many ancestors carried your fire? How many farmers made it through that famine? How many runaway slaves got away? How many soldiers conscripted, deserted? How many times did that chain almost break? How did your grandparents meet? What was the song playing when you were conceived? Is it inconceivable, the happenstance inherent in this life you have inherited? See, some see the elegant complexity of bodies or the natural beauty of the planet, and they say it's godly. There's gotta be divine intelligence behind it all, because the odds that you would make it on your own are so small. But me, I see millennia trying to murder you. I see 1,000 generations of pain and fear. I see struggle inscribed into your skeleton, and I see you still here. Ancestor armor, star-crossed survivor, an unwelcome guest in a hostile environment. Defiance is your birthright. Fire from the first time you drew breath, a smile on your face. Welcome to this space. Know that you are not welcome here. We are all trespassers. We are not welcome here. So if our drawing breath is blasphemy, sin, or treason, let's keep drawing breath until there's nothing left to breathe in. We are the codes that our ancestors still speak in. Word. Cool. Thank you so much. All my stuff is on the internet, man. You don't.
I don't know if there's I know there's a million things going on. Sonya Renee Taylor's gonna be here on March 1st. G Yamazawa's gonna be here on March 2nd or 3rd. Two unbelievable poets and artists. I think that's both gonna be at Hamlin. I'm just shouting stuff out, yo. Like, come to the Be Heard, the Be Heard Youth Poetry Slam series, the Reverb Open Mic. Are you coming back, or am I gonna like close it out? You any more announcements that you want me to make? All right. Thank you so much. Let's welcome Dua back to the stage.